Welcome to the SAP HANA Academy. My name's Bob, and in this series of videos we'll be looking at SAP Leonardo Internet of Things. In this video series we'll be looking at using the MQTT protocol with Gateway Cloud. And in this video we'll be introduced to the IoT Service Cockpit and we'll look at an overview of device data modeling. So this is the Internet of Things Service Cockpit. You'll see that it can be used to onboard and manage devices, sensors and the capabilities. We can also manage users and tenants if you've got the correct rights. And of course we can monitor real-time data flow. At the bottom of this page you've also got access to device management APIs, a message processing APIs, and we'll look at these in a few videos time. You've also got access to various bits of documentation and tutorials, and here within the starter kit you've got access to some great samples. So what we'll do is we'll log in with my user. So I'm going to log in as user developer 40 and place the password. And then what we'll be presented with is a tenant, and of course the first screen of that service cockpit. Now, the multi-tenancy feature of the Internet of Things service allows you to create multiple tenants on one single instance. And each tenant can have one tenant owner. And at the moment, the user developer 40 on the right hand side is the owner of this tenant, also called tenant 40. You can see that the role we've got is administrator, and this is the unique ID of this tenant. In terms of this screen, it's quite obvious. This is the user we've logged in as. Here we've got any messages when we create our various objects. We've got information on the instance and version that we're connecting to. On the left hand side we've got a list of those links which we saw as well on the first page, including those APIs. And on the right we've got access to a list of users. These are the users I've created in this system. But again, for this specific tenant, this is the only user, which is developer 40, who can access and administer this tenant, which is called number 40. So of course the user could have access to multiple tenants. So we're going to select this tenant, which is tenant 40, and this is our first screen, which gives us information on the various devices, sensors, sensor types and capabilities, and these are all classed as our device management. We've also got access to our component management, which enables us to connect to our IoT service using various gateways. So here we've got one gateway, which is an MQTT gateway, and we've also got another one which is accessible via REST. As you can imagine, these gateways provide you with a way to securely connect to your remote devices over a broad variety of IoT protocols. Now, the two protocols you can see here are called Gateway Cloud, which enables you to deal with centralized cloud-based processing. But in a future video, I'm also going to show you how we can use Gateway Edge, which provides on-premise IoT edge processing. So for example, we can place that Gateway Edge on a Windows machine and then interact solely with the Windows machine, which will then interact with our IoT service. But for now, we're focusing on using this MQTT gateway to introduce the IoT service cockpit, and we're going to be looking on onboarding a device. So if you want, you can minimize what you see on the left hand side so we can access it by icons as well. And again, if I scroll to the right, for each of these various gateways or our various objects, we can onboard them and also decommission them by simply deleting those objects as well. Lastly, we can use the IoT service cockpit to visualize the data which is being ingested via our various IoT devices or sensors. So again, if I go back to my tenant, we're going to be focusing on this device management. So we'll look at all these other options later on in this video. So what we need to do firstly is create a device data model. And these centralized device data models provide the schema of device-related configurations, including the data fields that will be exchanged. So in order to send data to the IoT service, a device data model is required. The device entity must have at least one sensor assigned to it, and if there's no sensor assigned to it, then a sensor will automatically be created during data ingestion. This is the default behavior. Now a new sensor type can be added with various capabilities. These are these options here. So you can see these as measures or commands, but we're going to mostly see them as measures. These capabilities can be reused since they can be assigned to multiple sensor types, and each capability can have one or many properties. So what we're going to do is initially create a couple of capabilities, and then we'll create a sensor type which will contain those capabilities. The capabilities will then be assigned to the sensor type. Then what we actually do is build a device, and then within that device we allocate a sensor, and we're going to again build that sensor ourselves. So in the next two videos, what we're going to do is basically build a device which we're going to place. You can imagine we place it in a greenhouse. It's a physical object, a little bit of computer technology. That device could have multiple sensors. In our scenario, it has one sensor. This sensor will detect two different things. It will detect the soil pH and the soil moisture. So we'll basically place that single device which has a single sensor which captures two different things, soil pH and soil moisture. So to do this, what we need to do is go firstly to our capabilities, and we'll build those capabilities first. So if I click on the plus button within the capability, we're going to build two capabilities or measures. One of them is going to be called soil pH, and one of them is going to be called also soil moisture. So basically first we need to give it a name. So I'm going to call the name of my capability right at the top, like so. An alternative ID will then be automatically allocated, and you can see this is kind of like a primary key which we'll use when we're sending and receiving requests using various tools like Postman or Payho. Again, we'll see this later on. We'll give this some names, so I'm going to call it the same name as soil pH. We'll determine the data type, which for us is going to be a float, and our measure is going to be pH like so. So we'll add another capability as well. So if I click on create, we'll get this. You will not be able to change the assigned properties. That's fine. I'll click on confirm. So we'll see a couple of things. We can see that that capability here, if I go to my capabilities, has been created. We'll also see at the top right hand side that we've got a notification that the capability has also been created, which of course we can delete. So now what we need to do is look at building that second capability. Again, before we do, this is the ID of that capability, and this is the alternate ID which we'll be using a lot during these few videos. So what I'll do is I'll go back to my capabilities and I'll add another capability, and that for us is going to be called soil moisture. So just to show you that you can have different types of measure, so I'll create soil moisture here. We'll give it the same name. The data type for us again is going to be float. And this time the unit of measure is going to be a percentage. It'll be the percentage of moisture in the soil as an example of our capability. And then I'll click on create. So we should see that we've got those two capabilities. How do we know? Well, if I go to my capabilities here, we can see we've got two. Again, if I go to that specific capability, it's not been allocated yet to a sensor type. Of course, we need to build the sensor, which is what we're going to do next. Sorry, the sensor type, which is what we're going to do next. Now, quite simply, you can see a sensor type as a grouping. That's really what it is. So if I select plus, what we need to then do is build that sensor type. So I'm going to call it the following, which is gh_soil_sensor_type. And I'm just going to uniquely identify it by putting 40 at the end, just so I can make sure it's uniquely identifiable. And you'll understand why when it comes to looking at IoT application enablement later on. So once we've done that, we've given our sensor type a name. And again, as I said, this is a kind of a grouping of our capabilities because of course they can be reused. All I need to do then is go and select the capabilities. So I'm going to select soil pH. We're going to have it as of type measure. And again, I'm going to select another one, which is soil moisture. And again, this is going to be a measure like so. So once we've done that and we click on create, we've actually created that sensor type. Again, you can see the name of it here. We've got two capabilities within a sensor type. And again, this is the alternate ID of that sensor type, which contains those two capabilities. Again, this is indicated in the alerts as you can see here. So now that we've done that, we need to deal with device and sensor onboarding. This means we'll be able to choose a specific protocol that we want to use when we're using IoT, and we'll also be able to generate a certificate to deal with the security aspect of connecting to our IoT service. And we'll cover this in the next video.